Yeah, yeah. Whoa. Unpopular celebrities. Yeah, we speak that truth so effortlessly. Living like no script, just energy. From the block to the base to the legacy. Unpopular, yeah, celebrities. Started with a combo, now the world leaning in. Four vets in the room, let the stories begin. No filters, no scripts, just wisdom and sin. We talk hustle hard and the places we've been. From the field to the mic, that growth is the lesson. Turn pressure into presence, that's the real confession. Got the crowd tuned in for the raw and the rare. You can feel the truth breathe through the air. Unpopular celebrities. Yeah, we speak that truth so effortlessly. Living like no script, just energy. From the block to the base to the legacy. Unpopular celebrities. Talk music, talk ball, talk rank and salute. Every topic on the table, every word in pursuit. We the voice for the ones that the world overlook. Turn pain into punchlines, life into the hook. Yes, in the chair, we breaking the mold. Every episode's heat, every message is gold. No gimmicks, no mask, just purpose and peace. When the lights come on, that real don't cease. Unpopular celebrities. Yeah, we speak that truth so effortlessly. Living like no script, just energy. From the block to the base to the legacy. Unpopular celebrity. We ain't chasing fame, we redefining the game. Give light to the name that the system can't tame. Got the people tuned in, cause they feel our lane. It's the voice of the real, not a chase for acclaim. Mic check, then the vibe start to settle for a host. One stage and the truth is the middle. So before that show start, let the beat breathe steady. When you hear the name, just know we ready. Oh yeah, when you hear the name, just know we ready. Unpopular celebrities. Yeah, we speak that truth so effortlessly. Living like no script, just energy. From the block to the base to the legacy. Unpopular celebrities.
What up?
He said, "What up?
My voice.
What up?
My voice is gone. My voice is gone.
What up? Happy Sunday, ladies and germs. Peace, human beings. Peace, human beings.
Why do you say that? Peace, human beings. What does that even mean?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, peace means what mostly people do when they say goodbye or they're saying, they're leaving a conversation with a good friend. They're like, all right, peace, right?
Right.
And then what are you? A human being. So peace, human beings, peace, human beings. In all honesty, I got it from my favorite. I stole it from my favorite MC. And I would argue top 5, maybe my favorite of all time. That dude, shout out to Yasin Bey, aka Most Def. Love that dude, man. I stole it from him. He always says that, so I decided to adopt it.
What's up, Kevin? Kevin
before.
Snow things.
Peace, human beings. Peace, human beings. It's your boy Philly DC here with my partner in crime here, Pete, on the engineer boards. You got Jessica Player also and Dell out there doing their business. Welcome to another episode of Unpopular Celebrities here on this lovely Sunday morning. We have a great show for you. If you missed the last show, go ahead and catch it on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, or Facebook, the live or the podcast audio piece. But we're doing a series called Transitioning from Military to Civilian. When do you know it's time? And we received a lot of great responses and feedback from the last episode, which was episode 1. And so here we are with episode 2. We're going to double down on a little bit of what we talked about last week in terms of what's it like to push the button, the things that you may go through, and we're going to double down on that. This is going to be a long series, probably between 4 to 6. Thank you for subscribing. Yeah, shout out to Kevin for subscribing.
Big shout out to Kevin for the subscription. You see
Much
this,
appreciated, brother.
the
Much
sub goal
appreciated.
up top. We trying to get our goal. So one is 1% complete. So y'all math whiz can let y'all know what the sub goal is. But yeah.
But anyway, without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into that. And as always, if you are in this space where you're thinking about transitioning, or you're in the process of transitioning like us, or rather me, or for folks who are Kevin, I go Bears, actually go Lions, brother. I'm hoping the Lions win today. No shade on you. But if you already transitioned like Pete and other folks, and you already got some nuggets you want to drop, feel free to put it in the comments. We'll read the comments out. You can help others, including myself. So we appreciate that. Pete, any comments before we get started?
No real comments right now. I'm trying to figure some things out. It doesn't look like our viewer count for Facebook is working. But we'll figure that. I'll figure that out maybe another day. I'm a little sick, under the weather, so I gonna rely on Philly to see this thing through, because I will not be at my 100%. Got my cough drop here, so I'm gonna take that and see if I can make it through this, because as they say, the show must go on.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, turn my light
Good.
on.
All right. Well, without any more delay, we'll get started. So this is considered episode 2 of transitioning from military to civilian. When do you know it's time? So let's first start off. Last show, we kind of talked about the thought process that you may go through when you decide whether or not you want to push the button. Meaning, for folks who may not be in the military, if you decide to retire and you're serving in the military, and different services are different, but in the Air Force, there's a particular specific website you have to go through, and it checks your availability if you're able to retire. And then there's an actual button that you will click that will give you the opportunity for powers that be and Air Force Personnel Center to check your records to make sure you're good to go to retire. But pushing that button is significant because that is the first major step from the decision for you to decide to terminate or end your military career. But we got Andy Garrett. But what's up, man? You in the airport?
Oh shoot, I can't hit my
You in
boom.
the airport, bro?
What's up? What's up, Big Andy? I heard you was local, and I missed you. Well, close to being local, man. Sorry.
Well, yeah, it's good to see you, Andy. He's another good person. Andy Gilbert, former chief, he already transitioned and is doing well on the other side. So he's a good example. But anyway, as I continue, so let's just start with me. And a lot of things we'll talk about during this series is our personal take on it, because we're still going through it. Pete has already transitioned officially, maybe by 3-4 days, maybe a week. I'm still in my process. I got maybe a month or 2 left over. But for myself, when I decided to push a button, a bunch of things came to mind. Namely, one, what is natural, figuring out if you are ready or if it's time. So when you think about if it's time, you think about where you're at currently in your military career and also in your life. For me, I was at over 30 years, and usually when you take a specific job, you may end up getting what's called it's like a requirement. You have to meet 2 or 3 years depending on a position. Like if you make E9, like Chief Master Sergeant, you have a 3-year
service commitment.
Service commitment. Thank you. Service commitment. So same thing. If you take a job, usually you're there for 2 years. So anyway, I was getting near the end of my job, of my current employment position in the military, and I was going to hit higher tenure. So for folks, I got a lot of comments through YouTube asking about what higher tenure meant. And so higher tenure means simply each grade in the military, there's a certain amount of years you can serve in that grade or rank before you have to retire. And the only way to avoid that is to go to the next grade. But for a chief, the maximum is 30 years, unless, and I won't go deep into that, but unless you take a specific position, which I did, and you're working for a 2, 3, or a 4-star general. So for me, I was at a point where I needed to decide, did I want to continue to go to the next level, what's called like tier 3 for a command chief at the MAGCOM level, or stay at the NAV? But I would have to work for a 3-star general and get another waiver to stay another 2 years. But a lot of things come with that. I had to decide whether or not I wanted to move my family again. I've had 12 or 13 PCSs since I've been in 30 years. So for me, my kids are grown. I have a 32-year-old and I have a 26-year-old. So Wendy and I didn't have any kids. So we could theoretically move, but for folks that have spouses, the key point is the more you move, the more it may be difficult for them to establish themselves in a career. And I got to a point where my wife was doing well at her position, working for the government, and she was ascending as far as her popularity and her expertise. She was well respected in her craft, and I didn't want to pull her away from that again. And so my initial thought was to try to stay, and hopefully there's a position open in this particular area I was in Texas. But unfortunately, the further you go up in rank and in position, the lesser jobs there are. So there weren't any positions available. So I had to make a decision. Am I willing to move and compete or transition? And I decided to transition. And so quickly, I'll say this and then I'll pause because I've been talking for a while. What was difficult for me was the thought processes, as if I decide, when I made a decision to transition instead of compete, I almost felt like it was a cop out. Like I felt as though, like, I don't know if most people do it. You talk to yourself and you say, "Hey, counsel, are you serious? That's it? You gonna stop? You better than that. You're supposed to keep going, keep going." And it was hard to wrestle with that. It made me feel like I was giving up. And it took me a while to figure out I wasn't giving up. I was making a decision for myself, for my family, that's in my best interest. And I think I'm curious if other people feel that way, but it's hard because you've got to think the military is always thinking of themselves. What's best for the mission? You know how they say service before self? What's best for the mission? It's difficult when you've served so long. You're so used to thinking of the mission versus thinking of yourself. And that was that one time I actually thought about myself. And it was hard. I felt guilty. I'll pause there.
Don't really know what to say. I think we talked about a lot of this on the first episode, but if y'all got any questions as we go through this, feel free to chime in and ask your questions away, and we'll try to answer them, as you know, on this platform to the honesty and best that we can. So I think as we move on through this retirement period and we go on to, what a lot of people feel and how they might be feeling, I think you hit the nail on the head with some people are feeling like they're giving up. Some people feeling like they're quitting. For me, like I told y'all in the first episode, y'all can go back and watch it of what I said there. So I'll leave that in suspense so y'all can go back and watch that on YouTube or any platform that you can see this podcast, which is, Apple Podcast. What's that dang source called? What's that dang source everybody gets their music from?
Spotify.
Spotify. Thank you. Dang, Spotify, YouTube, whatever you want to see.
Okay. So anyway, when I got to that point and I decided I was going to do something for me, I finally hit to the point where I was comfortable with that decision. And so then it was the question of, who do I tell? Do you just click the button? Do you tell people ahead of time? And that's a tricky question because I've known folks who have went and told their supervisor, and here comes the comments. Why? What made you decide to leave? What are you going to do when you get out? There's nothing out there in the civilian world. It almost makes you question your decision. Now, if you're having a rough time in the military, you're maybe not a good performer. You're not going to have people probably say, good. You should have retired a long time ago. But for you folks who are superstars at your job, you're going to have people ask you those questions. And I will admit, it will make you, in some cases, really contemplate if you're making the right choice. Or they may dangle a carrot. I've heard cases where people say, if you stay another year, you'll get promoted. You'll get a strat. Now, I'm not trying to insinuate there are people out there that give hookups for people to stay longer. I'm not saying that. But there are cases where people will make you believe that you're giving up, you're putting yourself out of a position to and being in an advantageous position to move to the next rank or job. And it's hard. Let's see. Who was that? Ken Cliff. What's up, brother? I experienced the same thing getting out. I was afraid to get out. Thank you for that comment, man. And I think ultimately it boils down to that. Honestly, I think I felt there was a little bit of trepidation when I made that decision because I mentioned it on the last show, just trying to visualize what would it be like if I got out. And it is scary. Maybe for some people it's not, but it was scary. Not so much because I didn't think I could do it. It's more or less because I'm used to the same thing. Yesenia, what's up? One of my favorite folks. Don't like your husband though, because he's a dirtbag Cowboys fan. Anyway,
Jesus.
that's a powerful shift in focus, Chief. Your family became the mission. No carrot can compete with that, in my opinion. I agree. But and King Cliff says, but I stepped out on faith and had good military leadership and Chief Master Sergeant Simmons, Todd Simmons, who mentored me after the military. Going back to what Mazuka said, that's true, man. It's like you you get to a point where you really concentrate on your family, but it's the fear of failure. And faith has a lot to come with it. You have to really believe that it's just like anything. There are thousands of people that came after you that has already transitioned and they made it. So you will too. It's just believing that. King Cliff says, I knew who I was, trusted. I knew who I was, trusted in me, landed a good job, and completed my bachelor's and master's degree. Shout out to you. So anyway, so when I got to that point, for me, I did not tell many people. I told my supervisor at the time, obviously, because you want to tell them because when you hit the button, it goes to them anyway. Your commander. My supervisor was my commander. So I remember when I told General Allen, what I appreciated was that there was a smile, and he was saying, "Hey, we're getting up there in time, Chief. I appreciate you letting me know." It was a lot of congratulatories and such, but it's always hard to see good people leave. And I think we mentioned on the last show, those of us that are in leadership positions, we've got to get out of the making people feel guilty for deciding to move on. Even if you're not retiring, if you're getting out at 4 or 6 years old, or not 6 years old, 6 years, 10 to 12 years, we've got to stop make people. We got to start getting out of making people feel guilty for the decision they made. We have to start preparing them as best as we can for that transition. And I'll pause there before I go to my next point.
Now go ahead.
Okay. So then it comes the next point of how do you conduct yourself after you hit the button? Because there's a lot of things that come to your mind. You know how you have someone that think of it like when you're in a deployment. For those that have deployed, that have done like 6 months or a year on the deployment, and you get those deployment orders, you're getting to go home. What's up, brother?
What's up, Dooley?
You get this idea that you're about to go home, right? How many of you felt like when on deployment, when you found out you're getting your redeployment orders and you know when you're leaving, part of you feels like you're just dropping everything. Maybe not everything, but slow. You start to downshift a little bit, especially when your replacement gets there. When your replacement gets there, you kind of lean back a little bit because you're leaving. And I think I would compare it to this: when you hit the button, you start realizing like everything you thought about, your mind starts playing a different game with you because you're not thinking about, oh, next year we have annual awards we have to do, or maybe next year you may have a PCS or deployment. You don't have to worry about that anymore. I mean, you're getting to a point where now you don't have to worry about that. And so what do you do? Do you downshift? And if you do, there's a perception of people that you work with, they're going to think, oh, he's retiring or she's retiring. He or she don't care anymore. And that's a real thing because you just feel like you have to work harder so people don't assume that you just gave up because they know you're retiring. So there's some people that will purposely not tell people where they work that they're retiring for that fear of that alone.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And just to kind of talk about that, about who do you tell? I think one, you have to tell your commander, right? It depends on your position, right? If you're doing, 8 years, 10 years, maybe not so much, right? Just you're separating a little different. But you're retiring. Usually, you're a tech master, or higher. Usually, you have that relationship with your commander at that point, depending on how long you've been at the base, and a lot of that has dependency on that. But I wonder how many people in here that are retired, if they did tell their commander or not, or if they just like surprise, because they're gonna get the email, like you said. So as soon as you hit the button and do it, they get the email as well and let them know. So I think it's important that you at least tell them. Now, once you tell them, you have a decision to make. Do you tell them, hey, don't tell anybody that I'm retired? And I think I'll take that personally. That's where I was at. I didn't want nobody to know because of what you said, the fear of this person don't care no more. Like you take a day off of work, they're like, oh, he's retired, it don't matter. If you don't show up for a meeting, he's retired, it don't matter. So
Hmm.
it's that perception. It's just like, hold on. Like I mean, you got to remember, you click the button, you still got 365 days at the most. You can do less, just depending on where you're at. But 365 days, that's a lot of time. You want to stay involved as much as possible. Charles Davis said, good morning, fellas. Good morning, good morning. If I may ask, which would you suggest, retiring overseas or CONUS? I have heard people say wait until you're back CONUS, but I don't totally understand the big difference. Thank you for your time. Man, you're so politically correct. Thank you for your time. Appreciate that. King Cliff said, my commander told me I was making a mistake. Bruh, that's it. Man, I'm talking loud. That's an interesting question is you say your commander told you that you're making a mistake. And I think you told me a while ago that you met your commander after the fact. But if you want to talk about that, you can. Back to the Charles Davis point, overseas or CONUS?
I've always been or heard it's best to retire CONUS than overseas because, well, here's the thing: if you plan on, which I've had many friends do it, staying in the country that you're serving in, then it's advantageous to retire over there. I.e., if you want to stay in Okinawa or Germany, but obviously there's some things, certain conditions you have to meet in order to stay there. But if you're planning on transitioning to the states, I think it would make it more difficult for you to do your process overseas because there's things you gotta worry about. You gotta worry about where you're gonna go live, how you're gonna find a job, which states provides the most benefits for disabled members. There's a lot of things you got to consider. Then not only that, your family. If you want to have a retirement ceremony, you may
Right,
not have a lot of family attend
right,
because
right.
you're overseas. So I think it's more advantageous if you retire CONUS than OCONUS, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think real quick, it all depends what you want to do after the fact. And like to Philly's point, if you care about having your family, having a retirement ceremony, it might be hard for them to get overseas or expensive or both. Uh, And then also, if you plan to move back to the States, you rather do it on the military dime to have them move you back to the States than you having feeling rushed, because once you're done, you're done. There is no like hold on. There's no like, can I get a couple more days? It's like a PCS. Like once you have your D Rose date, that's where it all comes. Once you're done, you're done. So if you plan on coming back to the States, I would say I retired stateside, but in my opinion, going through it, um, that's what I would think. Where y'all want me to have mine? I don't care if you have yours on the
Devon, you're
moon.
not retiring anyway, man. You're gonna be like a 30-year senior master sergeant. Yes, for
Hey,
people
that's
say you can't do that
crazy.
exactly.
That's crazy.
I'm just kidding. That didn't come out right. I'm just kidding.
That's
Anyway,
crazy.
yeah.
But yeah. So I don't think it matters. But who you tell, or how you do it is really up to you. Really, it comes down to the person you are. If you're real flashy, I want to show everybody, want people to give me likes and say thank you. Post it on social media. Do whatever you do. I'm not that type of person. That's just not me personally. So I wasn't that type. And like I said, I didn't want nobody to know. People started hearing rumors, and so they would ask me personally, "Hey, I heard you're retiring." Nah, I don't. I would lie. I don't know where you heard that from. And they're like, "Oh man, But here's the thing: once you hit the button, it's like everybody knows. It's somehow the rumor gets out, and everybody knows, especially depending on your position. Uh, everybody knows. But I would still hold strong to my guns and be like, "Nope, not retiring." And then like 2, 3 months out, I was like, "Yeah, I am." Once the advertisement went out for my retirement ceremony, it's like you have no choice there.
Hmm. Here's a provocative question. What about folks who are married and the spouse? How much does a spouse dictates whether you retire or not at that particular time?
I think it
And
depends on the.
here's the reason why I say that. What if you have a spouse that says, "Well, because here's that fear. Well, if we retire, how are we going to get medical care? Where are you going to find a job? Where will we go?" So we talked about this last show. You stay in the military so long, you feel institutionalized. You're used to certain perks that you receive from the military, a lot of security. So you may have a military member who's like, "Look, I'm so burnt out. I'm ready to leave. I'm ready to do something else." But the spouse, he or she may say, fear of, okay, what do we do? We don't have a plan, blah, blah, blah. How much should a spouse dictate whether the decision is made to stay or go?
Robert Roller said my spouse was happy as could be when I told her the plan to retire. I think like Ken Cliff said, it's all about taking it. It don't matter when you get out, you take a leap of faith and you bet on yourself, right? We all got to get out eventually. So whether higher tenure or whatever it is, and hopefully if you're higher tenure, you built up a routine or a plan to get out. But to me, I don't think your spouse should matter at all. Uh, when you get out. And to answer those questions, what are we gonna do? Shit, I don't know. Like, but you have to have faith in me as your husband, as your wife, as your spouse to figure it the F out. Like, it might be you're not working for the first year of getting out. Now, if you are living paycheck to paycheck and your family is counting on your military paycheck, well, then that's a different conversation, right? But you have 365 days once you hit the button. Now, can you look for a job and stuff like that? I'm going all over the place. Dooley will get to your question. You can, but if you are counting on your paycheck, well, maybe right now is not the right time, and you take another year to figure out your finances right, and then maybe go from there. That's my answers with that. Devon McCoy said, "That's why I married a doctor." Type shit. Type shit. Uh, if you want to answer that, I'll let you. But Dooley has a question as well.
Okay. Why y'all think about what y'all think about seeing leaders that opt not to have a retirement ceremony? Um,
Very disrespectful, kid.
30 years senior.
Very disrespectful.
You said you're married to a doctor, so it
Very
shouldn't be too
disrespectful.
much of an issue. I'll circle back with that because what I don't want to do is get out of order. Let me double back on the question I posed about spouses, and then Dooley will answer your question. Um, I think I guess where I was getting at is it's easy for someone to give you input on whether you should not make a decision on something and it impacts them versus the person being in that particular moment. Case in point, if you have a spouse that may say, well, we're we're used to this. Like, what are we going to do? Like, the conversation of retirement should not happen the day you decide to hit the button.
Right, right.
It should be, and frankly, I mean, that goes more into marriage and the relationship thereof. You should know whether or not how your military member is doing in the military. You should have an inclination of how well they are, if they're feeling burned out, if they feel successful. If you have a spouse in the military and they've went for promotion 4 or 5 times and they're not making it, you might want to start thinking like, okay, well, what's the future look like? If you have a spouse that maybe has a lot of physical injuries and they're having problems with doing physical assessments and they're on waivers, you might want to start, you know what I mean? It should never happen the day you push the button. However, I do think ultimately it's the military member's decision. It ultimately comes down to that. Because if you stay because of fear, because of comfortability, and because you want to please someone, eventually it's going to catch up to you. And you're not going to be happy. And then trust me, it's nothing worse than have somebody that comes to work every day and they hate being there because people notice it, especially if you're higher in rank. If you're like a supervisor, manager, senior leader, commander, if you don't want to be there, don't think people don't notice it. You can only mask it for so long.
Hmm.
And those folks that's going to be still staying in, they're going to depend on you. They're not going to know that you're struggling to stay in because you really want to get out, but you feel like you cannot get out. So it's almost best to just really come to grips with your decision. Devon says, I see a lot of times where the member is not open with their spouse about their performance at work. Oh, man. Yes. Yeah. Man, that's another show for another day, but I've always had issue with military. The way it works if you're married is the communication piece. How many people who are married deploys and a wife or husband don't know about it? You gotta communicate. I'll
Okay.
pause.
Yeah, we'll get back to that. Let's get to Dooley's question, and we got a couple more comments to go through. But I guess real quick, and then we'll go to these other comments because there's some longer ones. What do you feel about senior leaders that opt not
Man,
to
I
have
really
retire?
didn't want to. I didn't really want to touch that out of order, but I'll do it anyway. Um, I'm torn. I was always a person that, and I've always told people you have to have a retirement ceremony. I would hear about folks about to retire and they said, we're not having a ceremony. And I would be very irritated. And I would do my best to convince them to have one. But after having my own, I still believe that it's important for your people to see what it's like
Oh, hold
when you
on.
hit.
We're not live on Facebook no more.
Okay.
Let me see what happened. I was wondering what happened. Of course. Man, I hate technology.